Um, my name is Melanie Rose. I'm one of the founding practitioners at Evolve Me. I'm a psychic medium. I also do a little bit of healing. I'm working on some sound things. I do a little bit of remote viewing. And with us, we also have Lori Sheffer. She is an Andean shamanic practitioner, psychic medium, and vocal sound channeler. So that will come in handy with our topic tonight. We also have Derek McBride. He is a spiritual channel and an energy worker, also handy in our topic tonight. And we have Annette Green. She is, where's Annette? Oh my God. Annette Green, holistic health consultant and spiritual facilitator. I wanted to get that all right. And today's topic at Evolving View is we want to talk about sound, healing, and energy, and all of the things that come in with that. And we're so glad that everyone's here to watch. I would say I'm kind of excited about this because Lori Sheffer here is she works with sound in a unique way. And it's always really interesting to hear more about it. And actually, Derek, do you work with sound?
Not really sound, just the energy.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I didn't want to miss something. But Lori, why don't you tell us a little bit about sound and how you use it in your practice?
Sure.
And why it works.
Okay.
How and why?
Just a little backstory. I was raised very much as the person that was told I was tone deaf and could not and should not sing. And that was what I was told throughout my entire childhood. And I also could not keep a rhythm. And the only songs I really sang were silly camp songs because that fit right into my personality. So what happened was I was in the shamanic program and I was taking shamanic classes. And the first thing is I'm beating a drum and I'm not beating the same as everybody else. I noticed one other person was offbeat with us. So we tried to find each other and look around and we just couldn't do it. And I worked with my shamanic teacher over the concept that it had to do with my own heart center and that my own heart was, needed a lot of work and I needed to be in rhythm with my own heart. And that is true. And I also had to have the confidence to believe that I could do it because so many voices had told me I couldn't, that that's what I believed, and just completely out of sync. So that happens. And then about a year into the training, we were doing this exercise where we had to take our name and sort of break it apart into sounds. And suddenly I was doing things that were just coming out of my mouth. And I began to tone in a way that I didn't even know I could. And my best friend was just like, he's like, oh my God, I think you made me go to sleep just now. He's like, what is that? And of course, I had no confidence. And once my teacher is this beautiful Kirtan Wala, and she's a musician, and there was someone else, and there was a professional musician. So my confidence was like, oh, I can't do this in front of anybody. But what happened was it just kept coming out and coming out. I couldn't stop it. It wanted to come out. And but when I did try to do it, I would get short of breath. I would lose it quickly. So a guide came in for me as an opera singer, and she taught me how to use my voice. And through time, I have gained confidence, and I now am more willing. I'm totally willing. Never say more willing. I am willing and accepting of this as it comes in. So how do I describe it? So what happens is I channel in these frequencies of sound. Sometimes I think they actually belong to spirit beings who come through me to bring it in. Sometimes there are actually voices within it. At times it's very indigenous, and at other times it comes from different cultures. And it has a lot to do with the frequency of who sits before me and what the person needs before me. And so that is how I bring in sounds a little bit. I'll do some. I can do some to explain it. And then what people have told me is that the sound impacts them on this level where it connects with them, like frequencies, like the idea of, moving with the rhythm of your own body, and sometimes it's with dissonance, to help to break up whatever is there. So that is, in a nutshell, how that works within me.
So for people watching, when you say, so a guide came in, who was an opera singer, what does that mean? How did a guide?
How did she came in? I was in a spiritualist church in Greenwich, Connecticut, sitting there, and suddenly this presence, that not a physical, not like alive, but this presence of a woman who had lived, came and sat down right next to me. I could feel her heaviness. I could feel how heavy she was. And like this knowing of, like, beautifully dressed, like rich, and lots of baubles on her hands, lots of gems and jewels. And this is all just put into me. And she told me, sitting there, because at that time I was like, yeah, I had a few guides, but nothing like this. And I was like, yeah, I don't get it like that. And then she just came in and she said, I'm going to work with you, honey, and I'm going to teach you how to live large. And then she starts to laugh, right? She's laughing. And because that was another thing I was taught, was that I was fat and ugly but smart, right? And she's laughing at me, but that's what happens with us, right? These are the things that are put into our head, these things we buy into and believe. And so she then became this guide, this teacher, to assist me on the spiritual level, to literally work with me. And that's what she would do.
That is very cool, because like when I am a psychic medium, but I don't feel like I work with guides like I hear a lot of people do. So that's always something. I understand the value of guides, and that we all have them. I appreciate that. But I don't work with guides like that. So I'm always interested in how other people do. Annette Green, holistic health consultant and spiritual facilitator. Do you do sound? Do you do anything with sound? I don't remember.
Well, I don't do practices like a class or something like that. But in yoga we use sound a lot, and I also learned a long time ago about particular sounds, like the sound of HU, HU. Toning HU is like toning the light and sound of God. And so in a big group, everybody's kind of toning, from whatever comes from within them. So then it creates a kind of a harmony. And when I do it by myself, I can feel a resonance within me. Like it's almost like things start to line up, or energy feels like it's clearing out, or something to that effect. And it also happens for me with toning Om, the Om. So I do HU and Om a lot by myself, and sometimes I do it in my yoga classes.
That is so cool. I would love to take one of your yoga classes one day. That'd be so fun.
Cool. I would love you to.
Yay. No, because I've done guided meditations. I've done a ton of classes, and but a lot of times when they'll just play like one tone to like end the meditation, even just that to me is just always like, it's definitely a cue for the people meditating, but it's always just a cool, like, I don't even know what it does for me, but it does something really good. You know what I mean? It just like removes whatever energy that shouldn't be there or something, it's just fascinating.
Stimulates your DNA. Stimulates your crystalline DNA.
Yeah. And that's amazing. But there's also sound healing. Like, we can heal with sound, and there's a lot of research on that. And I've been just kind of looking into that, and I just got sound. Gosh, they look like a Y. I can't remember what they're called.
Tuning forks.
Yes, I just got some, and I'm just kind of looking into that. But it's amazing. I don't know.
Well, just a broad spectrum of them too.
What?
Go ahead,
Oh,
I'm
Go ahead,
sorry. I was just saying the gong, like gong baths, the big gong.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have one of those. I actually have, conch shell. I have a gong, a very large gong. I have lots of different drums. I bought this beautiful clearing bell from Great Britain a number of years ago, really gorgeous. And then I also have the smaller bells as well. And through the years, different people resonate with different things. And I recently I was doing the workshop out of my house. And that was one of the things, I used the gong on someone's spirit said, grab the gong. And so I did the gong on this person and she just tries, she's like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I needed. And in a little bit, I'd like to talk about, after Derek speaks, I'd like to talk about energy itself and how the energy in our body, and talking about ways that we can work with sound ourselves to break it up and to work with it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, Laura, that's kind of exactly what I was saying. I was actually looking into this study because I'm all about seeing how science is proving a lot of the metaphysical, the spiritual aspects. And there was this study about, our energy. It's like a torus field, they say most of the time. But when we tone certain vowels, A, E, I, O, U, that torus field, it changes and it puts out different resonances in, from our body and into the collective. So there's so many ways that we could use sound healing just for ourselves by just toning that. And then you're saying the Om, the hue. I was looking at this another study where the guy was saying simply humming for like so many so long a day. Just humming is so beneficial for us. And these things, I don't know if it has to be the human mind. We think it has to be so complex and we have to spin backwards 5 ways and align all of our chakras and hop on one leg and do this and do that. And it's really that simple. Hum. A, E, I, O, U. I mean, that's why I always say, Spirit always says that. I mean, we make things so much more complicated, so much more difficult than it has to be.
Right. And we think it's supposed to go like this, like throw that out.
And what I'd like to do in each of you as a parent is to think back to when your babies were babies, right? What was the first thing they did? How did they bring out sound?
They just would gurgle and they would, make the sounds that we made.
Right? Yeah. And they would and sometimes you ever catch them and that they would be playing with sound, right? They would be playing with sound. You'd hear them. And like in certain circumstances, it would be these really high screams, right? You think about, and this is what is being brought into me. This is born within us. This is something that we are born with the ability to do. Think about when you think about your babies and that the basic needs and the sounds that they even made over their basic needs.
Right. And if you honestly, if you pay attention to their cries or you pay attention to those, you know what they want. Like, people think, oh, they're just crying. And it's like, no, if you actually pay attention, you'll know what they want. It's different.
And this self-soothing and when you think about how that works and having worked with kids on the spectrum, I know that there's a lot of that is the soothing, the self-stim, but sounds play a very important role in how, I know I was a big one for sound when I was a kid. I loved making sounds and I found comfort and, unfortunately, others didn't find the same comfort in me. But you see what happens there? Do you see? You see that? And that's frequency. When we're born this pure light. We're born in sync, right? We come in these beautiful beings and their energy is perfect. Now, things happen to us, and sometimes they happen immediately. Maybe something at our birth, and there are things that happen, and those begin to take our energy and make it askew, right? There are things that are traumas, there are the way that we're spoke to, there are events, all sorts of different things are occurring. And how do we self-correct? And when you think about that, you think of your children. But we're given these tools at birth, but then somewhere along, many of us are taught that our tools are like awful, or they sound terrible, or they're ugly, or whatever. And we stop using the very tools we were born with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And those
Um,
little things that we hang on to throughout our whole life, like those can be crippling, you know? So we learn to let them go. But
Right, which is why we come into the practice, isn't it?
Right.
Because
Yep.
that's the whole idea now, is learning to heal yourself. And how do we do that? Through tones.
I agree. Were you going to say something, Derek? You
No,
look-
I was just I was just agreeing because like you say, Lori, I mean, we come into this world with everything we need. It's just like you say, we get all the bombarded with different energies, the do's, the don'ts, the this is beneficial, this isn't beneficial, and we forget. And in any spiritual practices, in any healing, it's really returning back to that pure state, returning back to that the light within you that knows it's perfect, that knows it's from divine, that knows it's from source, that knows exactly what you need, that
Yeah.
your path is different from everybody else's, that your tone is different from everybody else's, and it's supposed to be.
I agree. And it's like we're all surrounded by our own little energy fields. We all have our own frequencies that change in different times, and like it always makes me think of like in the parades when the big drum goes. That is like my favorite. I can feel it in my entire body. And I love that. And I always was like, oh my God, this must be doing something good, because it just felt good. That's my favorite part of parades. Otherwise, I don't like them. But anyway, yeah. And with the tuning forks that I just got, I was just I hadn't gotten to dig in because I was leaving for a road trip. But I was just briefly got to read about them, and you can like ting them and you can put them on parts of your body, on joints and things. I am so excited to know more. Do you guys know any more about
What frequency? What frequency?
There's 3 hertz they have, like 3 different ones. I only have 3. So I guess it would depend on which one you would use for what. But like I said, I haven't been able to like dive in yet.
Yeah. I haven't used them specifically, like that. But I do want to say that one thing I have learned, because through my years as a special ed teacher, I would bring in different instruments for the kids, and some of the kids are extremely musical, and but some kids are very sensitive, as some people in general are very sensitive to sound. So even in my practice, because people are also sensitive to smell and everything else, so when I'm using an instrument, when I'm using the drum or gong or anything, I'm really careful, and I always start out really low and away from them. I try to stay away, and then like if they're standing and they're like, oh, I really like that, come closer, and I move in closely, because we all are born different. We're all different with how we handle sounds and energy and everything else. So when we're using things, just be sensitive to that. And it's one of the things, even when I have someone on the table, let's say I'm using a drum and they're loving it, and I'll have a drum. And the idea of the drum is that, in my practice, in Andean, way, we call it hucha, which is a Quechua word for dense energy. So we're breaking up the hucha, got that drum going. And a lot of times if I'm doing work with someone around trauma, that's where I'll start out. I'll start out with the drum. I'll start out and I will go counterclockwise around the body because they're on the table. And I will go counterclockwise, or if they're standing, then I will, same thing, go around them counterclockwise, and I'll go head to toe. And that's unwinding the dense energy. So with the drum, loosening it up. And then once it's loose and it's out, then you can use the instrument now to bring in whatever that intent is, to begin to bring in the Sami, the light energy, and to do the same thing, or use bells. Bells are a great one for bringing in light energy. And that is like a technique. So when you're working with it, just as some people, if you want to do that, it's unwinding counterclockwise. And then for it to get rid of the dense energy, and then clockwise to bring in positive energy.
And by what do you do? Clockwise and counterclockwise? Like the sound, or?
I can be making sound, and I have rattles, and sometimes like I have someone on the table and we're doing a soul retrieval. And part of that might be that what I'm doing is I am opening up one of their chakras. So I have my rattle, and I would use my rattle, shake it all around the chakra area, shake, shake, shake. And then I can use my rattle to literally unwind the chakra to open it up. So then we can work on the energy in there. And then now here is where I might use my voice, where I might suddenly bring in my voice. So if I've got that there, I might, bring in that sound of, or spirit might say, we need to get in there deep. So suddenly it might be, oh, or it would change. It would depend. But you see how like there's a different frequency to the sounds?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then using that once you're in there, and then when you're done, you go back to the ringo, and then you wind in and close the chakra because now you have cleared it.
I am so fascinated with that. I need someone to break up my hoocha. For the last week or two.
Come to my table.
I know. Can we do a Zoom? Like this last few weeks has kicked my ass.
Think about it. I this fits right into this topic. So energetically, I call it come to my etheric room. So you and I work and we create this etheric space. And we envision this beautiful etheric space and we build it. And now my etheric body and your etheric body, our energetic bodies meet there. So I then would have you journey so that you are, I don't know, let's say I said, Melanie, I want you to, you were floating on a water that is clear as glass. And your body just lays there. And the amazing thing about this is it's like you become see-through.
I want to do that right now. Can we do that right now?
And then envision this water, and then it's like this water just envelopes you, and I mean it happens in so many different ways because we're working with your energy, pure energy.
Right. That's incredible. That sounds actually amazing, honestly. But
yeah, it's beautiful. Moving the energy, like you say, Lori. I do that with just the energy healings, like either in distant or in person, the unwinding of the chakras or energy centers. And I work a lot with breath, blowing in the sacred breath, blowing out what needs to be dispersed, and blowing in what needs to be brought back in. And just like you're saying, you wind out to release, wind in to close up, to bring it back in. And like, I don't know if you play with the energy much, but I do all of it with my hands. And if they're in front of me, I just let, go into my heart center and let spirit guide me. And it's different for everybody. Like you say, everybody's a different frequency. Everybody's had their own traumas, their own hurts, their own blockages in different parts of the body. So they're resonating such different. And that's a beautiful thing I love about it, because it's so different. Each experience is different. When you open up to spirit to kind of work through you, some people experience it as simply just feeling relaxed. Other people, they actually feel the release, and you're guided to work on different parts of the body. Like, yes, you work with guides, and your guides will literally tell you where to go, correct?
Yes. Sometimes, but I don't always know. Sometimes they come in and they literally sort of semi take over my body and then guide me. And and I think I've said this before, I haven't seen him in a while, but when I work in person, he is this old man and he comes in to such a degree I catch myself drooling. I mean, he just takes me over and nurses me like, but I can't even do that because I can't let my conscious self come back. I have to stay there and let him stay with me. And my hands will shake. He takes over and I get shaky hands and he just takes me over, not completely, but enough where he does the work. He does, and then the sound will come through as well. And it's just working with the energy. It's complete energetic work. And that's the way I channel. I think it borders on trance in some ways. I don't think I'll let myself go into a full trance though, because I'm standing up.
Yeah. I work with that, like, not completely that far. I mean, like sometimes they'll come in and they'll just tell me that, hold space, just hold space, and I'll just, be holding them and have my eyes closed and literally see them, just working with them, taking the spirit out, taking them up to a higher realm. Sometimes bring up earth energy and the work on the body while the spirit is out. And sometimes they'll like literally guide the hands to know, the lungs need cleared out. I did one clearing for this lady who had COVID, so I had the effects of COVID. And I was breaking up the energy there and blowing everything out that way. So it's just, it's beautiful the way spirit works through you when you open it up, and just the different, I guess, energy systems, the different dynamics of everybody and working through it. It's beautiful to be a part of. It's beautiful to see.
Yep.
What was that?
I was just going to say singing bowls are another like too.
Yeah, I have gone to sessions with singing bowls and I love that. It's so relaxing to me. But some people, like I have a sister who she's a singer and she knows tones and she knows music well, and it can bother her. You know what I mean? And people always say, I've heard people say that if you go if you go to singing bowls, either you're not ready or it's not your frequency or something like that. But she had this issue where she was like, I just wanted to leave. I just couldn't hear it. And I think because she's a musician and she's so that was always interesting to me. But
and that's the respecting yourself. And so if you are the participant, know yourself, respect yourself. And if you go to something, because I have been to things where I've walked out, where the frequency was in such a place that I couldn't handle it, and I've left. And I also have been working with people, and that's my whole thing, is really making sure, number one, that whoever I'm working with understands, and that, if they say to me, oh, and I want you to tell me, don't suck it up. Do not just take it, please tell me. I want you to tell me, because if this is not working for you, it's like, you look at what Annette does, right? Annette, what you do with the body, you want people to tell you. You don't want them to remain quiet, right?
Right, definitely. Yeah.
I just want to take a quick minute, real quick. I'm sorry, just to let everyone know that we are all practitioners on Evolve Me. You can find us and a ton of other amazing practitioners who do a ton of different things. All this healing, sound healing, there are mediums, there are shamanic healers, shamanic practitioners. You can find us all at Evolve Me, please do. And if you guys have any questions, we're streaming on YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook. If you have questions, type them in. We'll try to answer if we see them. So you're welcome to interact. Please do.
Yeah.
And back to you, Annette. Sorry to interrupt. I just was trying to get that out.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
No.
I actually, the funny thing is when you're talking about energy and moving energy, Derek, I actually have a sister. I have a lot of sisters. My sister Kelly does facials, and people would always walk out and they'd be like, oh my God, I just feel like I went somewhere else. That was amazing. And, that she'd be like, oh, okay, you're like, great, and they'd leave. And she would be like, oh, like, I don't feel good. And like, she would kind of like, I'd be like, drink some water or whatever. And I started noticing, I was like, you're moving energy. Like she was taking on their energy so that they could leave light. And she was heavy. And I was like, you need to release that. Like, you need to have a specific way to release that so that you're not carrying that around. Because it was like she was, and she's working up at their head because she's doing facials. So she's basically been giving these amazing energy facials, and people cannot understand why they feel so amazing. And I think it's kind of funny because I'm like,
She's a healer. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
doing healing on them.
yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, but she's, yeah.
One time I channeled in this Chinese, ancient Chinese healer, and because I don't work with meridians, but so how he showed them to me was like frequencies of light, it was like just running through, like rivers, that I guess I'll explain, like rivers and streams flowing through, and he had me up at this person's head, and what he showed me was there were these blockages in the head, and what happens to me, and so if I'm working at someone's head, my hands heat up, or they go cold and they tingle, and I begin to feel a massive, massive amounts of energy when I'm working everywhere, but sometimes around the head in particular. So, and I'm very guided when I do that. And so he was really showing me these places. And then what would happen was, at times I then would bring in the sound. And what I would do when I was working, like you've sort of seen me go like this, because I would come down, and there are these symbols then he had me do, and I've since used them sometimes, symbology that would then come in, and I have to tell you, I often am like, I never saw that before. What is that? And, and just being told to, like do the triangle, and then, tone right into the triangle. And it's just really cool. But it all works together. It's not just one thing. It's, when you're working with sounds, it's just another way to move the energy.
Absolutely. Like, and it's funny because the sound can, not only does it move it, but it breaks it up, it shakes it up, it brings it back. And, it's back to where, those dangerous thoughts where things are supposed to be a certain way, but really, it really depends on the individual. So if you're paying attention, and a good practitioner would, and we all are, you pay attention, you can feel what people need and what's working and what's not, which is really cool.
Yeah. And sometimes, what, and then I just go into that whole other state, and then people want to afterwards say, tell me, like, hey, can you remind me what you did? I'm going, I'm sorry, I can't. I don't remember a single word I said to you, and I don't remember anything. And, I might have little pieces, and that's it. That's just all there is. Whatever happened in that moment. And now, and this is really important too, when you're working with that level of energy, respecting your own self. Yeah, I do have it. I need more of it. I use a lot of Agua de Florida, and that's well, actually, it started as a perfume, but it's used a lot in South America. And I find this very helpful to use before a session, make sure I have it on my hands to clear myself. And then afterwards, I'll do the same thing if it's really a powerful session. The other thing I'll do is make sure I go wash my hands to cut the energy, make sure I afterwards, like a doctor, especially if I've been using my hands on someone, making sure I wash them. And I'm very clear to, and I have it all. I have my sprays, and so it depends what I'm called to do before a session and after a session, to make sure the space is cleared beforehand, but to make sure I'm cleared and the space is cleared when the session is finished.
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah. Oh, there was something I was thinking, and it just jumped out of my head. I actually know what you're talking about, because when I do readings, I cannot always remember a reading. People be like, oh yeah, remember this and that. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. But, because it's all about that moment and what they need in that moment. And it's not for me. So I know what you're talking about there, but.
I was thinking that I have a couple of friends who are really, really musical and really into, knowing the proper technique of things. And they've got a great ear and all those things. And this was where it was really hard for me, because Spirit just went and did this thing for me. And to tell you the truth, I don't know what I'm doing half the time, right? I'm just following it. And so, and I have a couple of friends who have a hard time with toning in doing this because they want to know exactly what they're doing. They need to know, they treat it like it's a musical piece, that it's got to be a certain way. And that's, I respect that. And there's a place where, listen, I respect anyone who can do, music and what you can do. But I think that the way Spirit works with me is I just have to release all of that. I have to let go and give up and let, Spirit come into me and say, Lori, we're not asking you to compose here. We're not, the only conductor in all of this is Spirit, and Spirit has chosen my vocal cords, my body as a way to do that. And it's very different from, in some ways from working in music. And so I'm very respectful. And that actually held me back because I was afraid of offending anybody. I was also afraid of someone telling me I was terrible, right? Because those are the old voices. Thank you. But those are the old voices. And that's really important. See how that blocks your frequency, right? How it stops you from being what you can be, what you want to be, because you are closing your own self off. And you've been given this gift, and we all have gifts, and yet we're closing it off because we're so afraid of whatever it is. And so part of being able to work with these things is working with ourselves and healing and clearing ourselves so the frequencies can move through us clear.
Right. I think we all can agree with that. I think the hugest part of actually, like, if you have an awakening or you these seemingly spiritual things are happening around you, one of the biggest things that people have to learn is to let go. Like, let go of your, all the things that people told you, let go of all the, oh, that's not possible, let go of all the just the crap that has piled up since you were little. And when you actually can do that, like, amazing things happen. You know what I mean? Like, I talk to Spirit, like, come on, like, that's crazy. And I love it. But it's like, it took me, like what you were saying, like, I had to let go of a lot of things, like from childhood, things that were said to me, things that I kept with me that made me feel like less. And I just hung on to it until I finally was like, why am I holding all of this? And then you can just kind of let go and get back to that, where you are open to energy, you're open to Spirit, you're open, like, and there's no rules. Like, I know a lot of people like to teach, and again, I respect how people teach differently, but I always think it's so important that within that, you work with the individual in a way that works for them.
Absolutely.
And I don't like I found myself just like leaving groups where that isn't the case, and that, that's fine. It's just not for me, because that for me was a big thing that held me back. So just that whole letting go and letting energy and there's healing in that frequency by letting go. Like, it's just multi-layered, just amazing. You know what I mean?
I think about, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be funny. No, can I be funny? And I'm thinking about, do you remember when Frozen was really popular? You guys probably had kids who were younger there. Remember that? Remember remember how many of your kids like drove you crazy with it all the time?
My granddaughter still does.
And the power of that, because it's the power of that, they get into it, right? When and you think about it, and we do too, but kids really will go crazy. And that, I got a feeling you probably have a grandchild who really loves to let it go, right? Am I right?
Don't, not yet. Stop right there. Not talking to Derek.
But it's true though, right? And that, I mean, when you think about the little ones and how they do the dancing, right? They don't care where they do it.
Right. That is true. That is true. Which I think there's such beauty and value in that because it's so spontaneous self-expression, which, in society in general, it's like in the era that I grew up in, you always had to, pay attention to be conforming and, not show too much of anything, be polite, be, courteous and don't laugh too much and
Don't be
just
loud.
kind of stiff and not expressive. So it took me a long time beyond my childhood to really believe that it's okay to just let loose. And sometimes what I do is I just dance. I just like dance all over the place because it is a way to, and I'm not a dancer, but I was listening to something and they were talking about even light language and even dancing and painting and drawing are forms of light language,
Mhm.
and I can really feel that because it somehow it releases and creates really beautiful energy, which is so different from how I grew up in terms of, walking the straight lines.
Yeah.
Well, it's really just
I
that,
support
freedom of
being
self-expression.
self-expressive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what it's about. I mean, that's why so many spiritual practices, they all talk about be childlike, have that freedom to not
Yeah.
care, to not, care about judgment from other people. Because when you do that, you start judging yourself more, and that shit sticks to you like glue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's in those movements, the drawing is where you find who and what you truly are. And that so many people, it's sad because so many people don't, because they're so worried about, they get stuck in certain roles. Well, a doctor can't do this, or a politician can't do this, or a mayor can't do this. They forget that underneath all that stuff, the mayor, the father, the husband, the this, they're being of light, their spirit that came to experience everything, to express their light, their sound, their energy. And you can't do this when you're stuck in this suit of whatever. You really have to take that shit off and just be yourself. And I know
Yeah.
it's hard. It's hard, but man, you've got to.
Well,
Spirit always talks about little steps.
and yes, Derek, and that is where it talks about the fact that in that no one is saying it's easy. And actually, I think that I look at my own healing journey and that's why I really chose the shamanic practice, is because what Onion shamanism did for me was beyond anything I ever received in therapy. And in it was, really looking at the aspects of my traumas and my wounds and all those pieces that I left to the wayside, because like Annette says, my mother, looking in the mirror, well, who do you think you are? Because being, vain was just not, and being pretty as a woman could also be seen as a bad thing because you can get hurt when you're pretty. So all of these woundings that we go through, and men have them too. We all have our, whatever it is, and our traumas of our life. You think about what every time you're wounded, every time you're told something, so the things you left to the wayside, right? And that you just like couldn't you think you could do anymore as a child, like breaking out into song in the middle of a grocery store.
I still do that. Is that bad?
Yeah, right. No, it's
We not
good.
supposed to do that?
That's awesome.
No, that's
You know that.
good. That's good. But my mother,
Nobody told me that.
my mom had this evil eye. You didn't even have to be looking at her. Somehow you knew the evil eye was on you and that you better knock it off. And you just knew. And that was, and God bless my mother, she was a product of her generation. That you didn't, that phrase, I don't care what you do in this house, but you will not do that in public. Do you understand me? If I see that, your ass is gonna be, And that's the truth, right? It's like, don't make me look bad. And that was yeah, don't embarrass me,
Yeah.
because there's a punishment for the parent that is occurring too, when that happens. And so that's just a piece of it as you unfold this, as you work on these healings and the unwinding and all the work you're doing, cutting not only yourself a break as you heal, but those who come before you, because they had stuff going on too. And so, and that's just a piece of it. But yeah, those frequencies, and as it all becomes looser, how all these things help, then you get to create your own music, and you get to create your own work on, bring back the sound from your childhood.
Yeah, and I do have to say, anyone who's listening, I highly recommend go get a sound healing. Around here, they're really aren't that expensive. Go to a Reiki practitioner and get your chakras cleared, and just see what it feels like. You will be so amazed. Like, you think like, oh, it's kind of weird, but like, that's not my thing. Go try it. Like, just try it and be open and see what happens, and it will blow your mind. Like, I go to a woman named Miranda. She does healing, and she's also a masseuse, and she does a crystal healing, and it blows my mind every time I go there. Like, I know, like, when I've been working a lot and I'm just really have a lot of pent up everything, I know I need to go to her, and she intuitively places the crystals on you, and it just, like, I don't know what it does to my energy. It's like I almost feel a frequency switch, like, if that makes any sense. It's the strangest thing, but it moves me, like, it moves my spirit, and I always have the craziest experiences, and they're good, and I walk out of there feeling so fresh, and new. And just anyone, I highly recommend, like, try the energy healing. Go to a Reiki practitioner, go to a shamanic healer. Like, just try, like, open up that door and just try something new, because you'll be so surprised. Like, I'm still blown away. No, go.
Try it on yourself too. Try it on yourself. Try some of that, the chanting ohms when you're by yourself. Try, saying some of that, the humming. Try that stuff. Heal yourself, because when it comes down to it, we all have that within us. And the whole point of this, I mean, I'm sure all you agree, is to empower people to heal themselves.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's great to do these healings for them, but if I could show them how and explain why it's working, and why, that you can do this on your own, that's the real gift.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And exactly, because I remember when this was first opening up in me, it was the car ride to work, when I would literally make all these sounds. I would let myself just go. And I mean, I still had to drive, but I would just let all these, and stuff like, but I was testing out what felt different. So it's like, and that's really important to find out what sounds work. Taking your hands, putting them on your belly, and then getting that deep laugh, and how does that feel? And moving your hands, and then and that's an exercise. My opera singer is laughing at me, and you're practicing these things and how they feel on you, and you go, ooh, I felt something move right there. And or like Derek said, the breath,
wet.
Doing
that. He's on the floor, her panties are all wet. You go, fuck her. That's how it goes. Grab, choke, set.
Thank you.
That's how it goes.
All right. Sorry about that, folks.
Anyway. That's not what we're talking about today, okay?
No.
Maybe another show.
Let's see.
No.
Annette, are you trying to see? Oh, yeah, I see you. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. I do like that, all of like testing out all of the sounds and like how it sounds to you. And even when you're making those sounds, you feel silly, but it feels different when you're making it than when you're hearing sound, you know, like it's like an internal thing, and that can be really healing as well, you know. So I think
just
that's
the fact
great.
that you're doing that you're being silly, you're giving
Yeah,
yourself permission to be
yeah,
silly, to be yourself. Just that alone is empowering, really.
right. And like even like Lori, you said that when you were little, like you were hushed and you were you know, told to be quiet maybe and whatever. And like the fact that you drive and you give yourself permission to do that, like that's huge. If more people would do that, like there would be such more of an openness. I don't know. It's like hard to explain. Like my wish for people is always to like Derek said, return to the good times when you were young, when you could trust something and everything was okay. And if you kind of stick inside of that energy, like everything's all, you know, it just things come easier. Like
Right.
energetically, things come easier. Your thoughts come easier. It's just, but you have to like find that balance. And for me, it actually was, I would tell myself, I need to go back to when I was young because I just trusted spirit. I didn't question why I was hearing things. I didn't question why I saw things. I did not question why I knew things. I just knew. And that was just who I was. And as I got older, that got destroyed. And then I had to find my way back to that to remember that, you know, all of those things are okay. So I love the whole idea of going back to like childhood, Derek, like you were saying.
And when you talk about, here's an interesting exercise. For some people, you have people in your life who actually hum to you when you were little. And I know as a medium, every once in a while, I'll call in a grandmother or I'll call in someone and I actually will get the sound of that humming that was used. And when you think back to that, and you know, that's one of the ways we soothe babies, or, you know, when you're hurt, you may have this older elder in your family who will, you know, hum to you or make sounds for you. And those play into this. And so even practicing with the humming, we don't hum like we used to. Oh my gosh, you guys ever do a kazoo? You ever do a kazoo?
Yes.
Okay, kazoos are a perfect example, right, of the feeling, you know, because that kazoo makes all those different sounds, and you literally can feel the energy of the kazoo within you.
I agree. And it's the same thing as the drum in the parade. It's just a different feel, you know. Were you gonna say something, Derek, before?
Well, some I do now. I mean, I don't do sound healing, but some I've been like encouraged to do from spirit is I'm out in nature, like I'll by myself a lot. So I've been working a lot with just yelling from the top of my lungs, just releasing it, just like yelling something empowering. You know, I'm releasing this. I'm bringing in light. I'm positive. I'm happy. And just yelling from the top of my lungs. When you do that, when you yell and just go quiet for a second, your body's vibrating afterwards because you're bringing in like all your power from your body, just releasing it in some strong declaration. There's so much energy behind it. If you haven't done that, I seriously like suggest trying it. Just yelling something positive about yourself. I'm beautiful. I am loved. And then just feel how you feel afterwards. Because you're using your intellect, you're using your body, you're using your spirit, you're using all three of your spiritual body, mind, body, spirit, into this one strong declaration to the universe. It is, I know I feel like amazing afterwards. My whole body's like vibrating and tingling. I know it's kind of hard to do when you're in a big city in apartments, but if you can, man, it's
Well, and your voice has sound. Your voice
exactly
has its own sound. Like that's great. Very cool.
I worked with students who couldn't regulate. And so when they would get angry, they had no problem screaming or saying certain things. So I find myself, I always chuckle because, you know, that is one of the things that they would do. They would scream at the top of their lungs. It's like they couldn't hold it in and they needed to get it out. And that's what, and for some, thank goodness, that's all they needed to do was just get it out. And so if we could get them to the point where they could go outside and do that, that would be great. But it is, when you think about it, sometimes it's just got to come out. Better out than in. Yeah, that's what my mother used to say. And so it's like that, because what we hold in, it gets stuck in there, and it becomes toxic. And so it is really important. So if allowing, and breath work, I mean, I'll tell you, and that I know you do the yoga. When I learned how to do the breath work and, some of that fire breathing, I'm not too fond of that nostril thing. I got to tell you, where that thing, where you do it, I don't particularly like that one. Okay, I'm going to tell you. Yeah, it's like crazy.
Tissues nearby.
But the breath work, right? That is, and that's a part of yoga, and what that does for you.
Absolutely. And that you were saying that you do some sound things when you do yoga. You're muted, by the way, so we can't hear you yet. But I'm curious to know how you use sound.
Okay.
Annette also does trauma-informed yoga, and another thing I'm fascinated with. But how do you use sound?
You're muted again, Annette.
There you go.
Oh, I don't know why. Okay, there you go. Yeah, well, in yoga, particularly in Kundalini yoga, there's so many mantras that we use. And so the mantras are in a language called Gurmukhi, which is a derivative of Sanskrit. And so each mantra, it really, targeting something. And so using those sounds, like a meditation can be repeating the sounds of a mantra over and over and over again until you actually, your whole system begins to vibrate with that energy of the mantra. So that's a real powerful thing.
Oh, we lost her.
She'll be right back.
She'll be back. She must have a connectivity. Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
You back in that? She'll probably need a minute.
I don't know what's happening. So
You're back. We
Yeah,
can hear you at least.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. And something else I wanted to say when right before Lori said the last thing she said, something came to me about we're talking about being able to be loose enough to allow ourselves to feel and to hear our own voice and to let go and tone and scream and release.
Darn it.
Uh-oh.
We're Annette.
Annette, she's
There she
back.
is.
Yes. How am I back?
Yes.
Yep, you're back.
And
Okay.
release and get the tone and the sound and the release. Yes.
Yes. Well, and something that came to me is that sometimes people as children are muted by their environment, by the way that they grow up, the people around them, and they're not really allowed to do those things that a lot of children can do in terms of just being spontaneous and going with their feelings and expressing their feelings. I worked for many, many years with abused children and those that have been, beaten and silenced in so many different ways. And so as adults, they just begin to learn that it's okay to even cry, that it's okay to scream, that, and there was a lot of things that I had to learn in that respect as an adult. It wasn't there for me. It wasn't allowed for me as a child, but I learned it through the shamanic training that I had, through some really intuitive therapists that I had. And then when I start exploring other modalities like yoga and Qigong, where it was more as an adult that I was able to really start to let go and hear my own voice and feel my own feelings and allow myself to scream at the top of my lungs or dance until I just fell out. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront for people who may not have had the freedom as a child to do those things.
I love that. And I think it's a lot of like our generation that we're just, you should be seen and not heard, essentially. And then it trickles down. But I think I was going to say that I love the fact that you took the things that stifled you and you learned about it. And now you're actually moving forward and you're bringing it with you. She's gone. Oh, there she is. And she's bringing it with her to, help others understand, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what it's all about, where you have these traumas, you have these things you go through, and then you find your way through them, and then you move forward and help others. I think that's really honorable, and that, I don't know if you caught that, but I love you.
I think that's the key to remember for all of us.
Yeah.
What was that, Derek?
Oh, I just wanted that's the key to remember for all of us, all of us that have gone through these pains and hurts and just atrocious, things happen to us, is not to have that, which is very easy to have that victim mentality, is to know that we are strong spirits, we are strong lights, and these things happen to us for a reason. Maybe so just simply because so we can share our story with somebody else and save a life. Maybe
Right.
It is to become a healer for somebody else. Maybe it is to become a spokesperson. But everything happens to us for a reason. As hard as and crazy as it is, and
It really
No.
does. Like that's the crazy part of it. Like all of those things, like I don't believe in coincidences. People will say,
No,
"Oh, that was a
no.
coincidence." I truly don't believe in coincidences
I
because
don't
like
either.
there's always, the whole butterfly effect. There's always that ripple. You just can't, you can open your mouth and there's a ripple, So
Exactly.
Well, and there is a frequency when you think of the word victim and you think of the word, rescuer or perpetrator, you think of these different, hero. There is an energy around these words. Now think
Yeah.
about someone who as a child, early on had, these early traumas and that they learned to cope with them in a certain way. So now what happens is there's an energy around that becomes like a wagon wheel. It's like a wagon rut. It becomes so entrenched that it's not just something, and I want to say this to people who are out there, it's not like you can wake up and say, oh, I'm gonna rescue myself, rescue me,
Yeah.
and it's like, but it's giving yourself the knowledge that, look, this is something that, is very old and it's going to take a while with think about from this frequency, this energetic way of looking at, we're literally learning energetically to change the pattern, and we're moving with the energy, right? It's like a dance. And imagine if we ran a workshop, and not only were we making sound, but we were practicing our own dances, right? And this is what Spirit does in my work with me. So, you're moving your feet and you're dancing, and Spirit's asking you now to try a new pattern, a new way with your feet. And that's it. And that's what we're doing. And over time, the more we test that new pattern, the more we allow ourselves the frequencies of the new pattern, we're rewriting code. And that's what the word that's coming. We're rewriting code. And now the longer we become comfortable with that code, the old way is still there, but it's now like so overwritten that we'll only go back to it in big crisis. And then after a time, we'll be like, yeah, well, sorry, not that anymore, right? But it's like we have to rewrite the code in our bodies. You think about your immediate response sometimes, and it, and maybe it's not how we want to be anymore, but that code was written, and maybe it's generational, ancestral. And so we're working on something that's ancient when we're working with these frequencies in this code.
Absolutely. I would agree.
Laura, you said something about, oh, sorry, go.
Oh, no, please do.
Laura, you
cut off enough. Like, I feel like I cut you off. Go ahead.
Good, no worries. Laura, you said something about, the frequency and the density of these words. And, that is very real stuff that a lot of people, they don't realize how powerful words are. I mean, they've done studies about the difference between I'm sorry and I apologize. Just two different words. When you say I'm sorry, your aura literally decreases. When you say, I apologize, it doesn't. There's something different just about that. Wow. So words, I mean, be careful with your words. Words are power. Words are healing. Abracadabra, I create as I speak. I mean, that's ancient wisdom right there.
Right.
So, I mean, people really have to realize that,
It's so true, Derek. And I think about one thing, my parents, you would think like my parents were terribly mean to me. It was just the way everybody was. And one of the things was I was called a klutz all the time. And I did drop things and trip a lot, but I was a daydreamer and my mind was always off in another universe and it wasn't present. And so klutz was the word for me, right? Oh, there's Lori. She's such a klutz. And one day as an adult, someone used that word on me and I stopped dead in my tracks. I says, I'd like you not to ever use that word again on me. And I said, I'm not a klutz. I'm not always mindful of where I am. And that is really what this is. I'm not being mindful of this moment. And that is what this is. Very different energy from I'm a klutz. I'm a butterfingers, right? I'm an idiot. Because that's where it goes, right?
I love that by creating that boundary for that person, like you just grew exponentially.
Yes, right. You're proud of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. And so we do it all the time. So I would say to the students, I would say, we're going to create a new framework. We're going to create a new way of talking. And because that's the big, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I'm an idiot, or and I would say, to them, let's try not to use that word on ourselves today. Let's see if we can not use it, and let's come up with a new word or no word at all. And that is some of the work it's that framework. Once again, it's very energetic, and we're just changing the way that we work words with ourselves, which is very deeper, right? Runs much deeper into the code of the code we've written for ourselves.
And the things we say affect us in so many ways. I mean, in everything we do, if we don't feel good, like, oh, I think I'm sick, that right there disempowers you. I mean, yep. I have kids all over in the house. My wife and kids will get sick. I rarely get sick because I never say the word. I never say I'm sick. I'm feeling sick. Never, because I never want to put that energy into me, ever. Just simple stuff like that. It empowers us, or it disempowers.
There's so many little things like that. Through COVID, my kids were, maybe yours too, Derek, but they were just anxious. Like they were kind of a mess, just like what's going on. And then all the changes with school and being at home and all these things. And, they're like, what if we get COVID? And I said, you're not going to get sick. Say it. I'm not going to get sick. And they repeat it. And I'm like, they're done. You know what I mean? And through all of that, none of us really got sick. Like later we kind of did when everything opened up. But for that entire year, I just be like, I am not going to get sick. I am not going to get this. Say it, and they would. And it was, then you could just see a little bit of relief. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like,
You puff
"Fine,
out,
we're
you
fine."
puff out your chest a little bit, and you're like, yeah, you feel
Yeah.
good. Your energy raises, your aura sticks out. It's
Yeah. You're like, I'm good. I have some control over this with my own energy, which is
Well,
nice.
but it's interesting though, because there is a flip side. And as women in particularly, paying attention to everybody else, right? And men do it too, but the idea of, as a teacher, I can't get sick. I can't get sick. So even when I am sick, I'm dragging my butt to, I'm like, refusing to be sick, just refusing to be sick. And just being aware of that. So when, it's like being aware, because sometimes we just have to say, I need to give myself permission to take a day off, a day to treat myself with respect. Because some people, yes, I mean, that is wonderful when we can put that, out there and that works. But also sometimes to just say, because one of my favorite things in the 4 agreements is to always do your best, and that changes from day to day, from moment to moment. And so sometimes your best is like, is not going to be what it was on those other days. So you can, be doing your best to not be sick, but maybe this is just going to be the day. And then saying, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to just be where I am today. And maybe if I take today, then I won't need it tomorrow. Right. And so those sort of ways too, because things do happen, and that I learned that last year. I got something and I pushed it away and said it wasn't true. And I ended up getting so sick because I kept telling myself, I wasn't going to get sick, and I wasn't paying attention to the signs, and I ended up really sick. So in that sense too. So just knowing yourself, project positivity, but also respecting yourself and paying attention to the messages of your body.
Well, I agree, but also when that comes, ask yourself why. Why am I sick? On the rare occasions I ask why, and I always hear, we got to slow you down somehow, because I'm always on the go. I'm always doing something. I always got to be moving. And Spirit, you always says whenever I get sick, you got to slow down. And like, for me, that's one of the ways that Spirit slows me the heck down. It's by getting me sick. So that's a very good point. Empower yourself all you want, but when it does happen, ask why. I think that's a big key. Ask why this is happening. What is the lesson here to be learned? What is the medicine to be gained from this? Because things just don't happen for a reason.
Right. I totally agree with that. And it's like, I think that with the, the self-talk and the managing, and really that's also, in a way, it's about boundaries. You know what I mean? You're kind of setting boundaries within your own self, which is always good, because I cannot tell you how many people I feel like, definitely in the last probably several weeks, I've talked about boundaries with clients, and to really work that, because people forget that they're allowed that. Like, you're allowed to have boundaries. It's okay. You no is an answer. I always say that to my kids. No is an answer. If you don't want to, say no, thank you. I have something else I need to do, but the boundaries thing is always good. And I think that is also, when you stop and you say, like, I'm not going to get sick. Or Lori, when you're like, oh, I'm not going to get sick, and then you are missing some cues. Like, those are also, it's a different boundary where you kind of have to keep your eyes open. But like, if you relax into it and just really kind of be aware of yourself, which is the goal, I think it works out great.
Absolutely.
Being a teacher, you're going to get germs. You just better acknowledge that. You can. I have your bubble of light around you, and it's wonderful. But anyone who's worked with kids, it's just until you build up your immune system, and right in that, it's like, and then you can handle it better. But it's, you find your own way of working. And that, how about you? What do you have to? Oh, did she go again? We'll catch her again.
I think her internet is in and out. Spotty.
Yeah, in and out.
Okay.
Or that, yes, the frequency. But yeah, this is all about being aware of your bodies, the energy you're working. And that, are you with us enough to speak?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So what do you think of all this? Do you have anything to add?
Well, I really agree with what I could hear you guys saying, and something that comes to mind for me is, I don't know if you guys know or have heard of Matt Kahn, Mattkahn. But anyway, he writes this book called Everything is Here to Help You. And it's a fascinating book because we don't always think about things that don't fit.
Oh, darn. She'll be back.
I love that concept though. Everything is here to
Yeah.
help you.
I know.
Everything
And
happens for a reason.
I know. I might have to write down that book, actually. Matt Kahn, Kahn.
Are you back in that?
Back. Yes, I hear you.
I'm so sorry you're
Can you hear
having
me?
problems with your internet. Yeah, we can hear you again.
I know, it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. But anyway, everything is here to help us, and for me, that's been a really powerful tool for me, especially when things are not going the way I want them to go or I expected for them to go. If I can really slow down and stop and breathe and realize that everything is here to help me, and then start to explore.
Oh, she always has
Never
such
think.
good knowledge. I'm so sad.
Yeah.
I know, but really realizing that everything is here to help you. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
it makes a ton of sense.
Anyway, I'm done. I'm done.
Thank you.
She's
I'm
kidding.
done.
No, it is true.
It's
And
very
that's-
informative, though, really.
And thank you, Annette, for that. You know, when you think about those of us who have experiences happen in our life that have shifted our life, that have been extremely, like, you know, for many of us felt when they happen, them negative, you know, that these are experiences where maybe we've gotten really sick, we got in a car accident, we lost our jobs, and got a divorce. I mean, there's so many different areas where I've heard this go. And it is this really terrible time in your life where you feel like the whole world is crumbling around you. And then it really now is, what do we do with that? You know, how do we handle that? And it was one of the, and it's happened to me a couple of times, and it really is how we, what we do with the energy around that is a big piece of that. As this has happened to me, it's done, or it is happening to me. This is the other thing. Oh my gosh. When something is happening to you that you feel is being created by someone else, right? For instance, your boss doesn't like you, and you know, or that's the feeling. You know, I'm about to lose my job, or whatever that is. Now it's what we do with that energy, and that is really, really important. So there's that energy that's coming at us. How do we do that? And you know, like, you'll hear terms like, I mean, for me, when I'm going through something like that, I try to remind myself to maintain my own dignity and self-respect. That is something I try to do in a way that, you know, very much so, because sometimes we can feel like we're being attacked. And there are things we need to do to protect ourselves. There are definite things to stand up for ourselves. But I always, because I've been through a couple of things like that, and I really had to work hard on keeping my energy higher, and not, you know, in times when I was feeling attacked by others, not going low, because it's easy to want to go low or to obsess. There's the other one, obsess. You know, and so how do I manage my energy when all of that is going on? What can I use to assist me? Because those are the really rough moments. Those are the moments that we really need a practice to guide and assist us.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's like, I had someone recently make a comment to me, and it was true. but not very nice, not very nicely said. And, I had to sit with it for a minute because it wasn't malicious, but it tweaked something in me and I didn't like it. But I was like, what am I going to do with this? You know what I mean? Am I going to make myself feel bad? Am I going to sit here and, ruminate and have this floating around my head? Like, I don't have any interest in that. So I just kind of took the comment and I brought it with me forward. You know what I mean? I just like brought it and just moved forward and was like, okay, I'm aware of that, or I'm aware of this. And it's really about your choice and how you're going to take whatever energy has been given to you and merge it with yours or transform it and then move forward in a positive way. Because you have that choice. Like, that's your choice. And, things don't always go the way we want, but we're only in control of ourselves and what we choose to do and how we choose to move forward with whatever's given, whatever's presented. So.
And sometimes they're just terrible situations, and they, and so and that is where I just, I remember when I had my car accident and broke my femur, and suddenly, I had been an AIDS case manager, and I actually was on my way to an audit when I got in this accident, and at the hospital, well, I'm this crazy woman because when the accident, the airbag smoking, after I realized my car's not on fire and they're trying to figure out how to get me out, I said, can someone get my cell phone out of it's 1997, get my cell phone out of the back of the car so I can call my boss and tell her to come get my briefcase. And I make them come get my briefcase because it's HIV and a confidentiality and I'm a freak. And they get to the hospital, and after it's all like the next day, and I'm like, well, okay, by tomorrow I'll be ready to go to this meeting for my client. And they're like, Lori, you're not going anywhere for quite a while. And through the days to come, I realized that this is real. I'm suddenly not going to be able to manage anyone's life for quite a while. And then I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? That's how I see myself, right? What am I going to do? And it took all my effort to figure out how to manage my own life and to figure out how to ask others for help because I couldn't do anything. And those sort of things, it was such a teaching because, there you are. You're a mess in the hospital. You can't walk. You broke your femur. You got all these other things wrong with you. You can't even go to the bathroom,
you have to ask for help.
You have to ask for help. And it's
that's really
big. Yeah, and shifting that. And then I cried. I did a lot of crying when no one else was around.
Too. I would also cry.
And because I had no power. And I felt like I had no power.
I was going to say you felt like you had no power.
Exactly.
You still you just
And what came out of that whole experience, though, was a deeper understanding. Chris, I'm such a goofball. I say, well, this is really teaching me what my people with AIDS must feel when they're going through a really bad. So Spirit is teaching me what it feels like to be this.
Great, though, that you could see that and make that connection because a lot of people don't, they're so swept up in the drama or the moment and, oh God, everything's so awful. You don't stop and say oh my God, this is how my people feel, and now you've been given essentially the gift of knowing that without having to live that. Yeah. That's a gift. Yeah. So especially when you help people.
Have to have help, have someone help me. It was a beautiful experience. And it was one of the biggest teachers in my life. And I say it was difficult, but it also gave me some great gifts. And that's why I say it's what we do with what we're given, even those really horrendous things. And they're not easy. They're not easy. But there are some things we can do to shift it.
Yeah, and absolutely. If you're in one of those positions and, find your person that can talk some sense into you and be like, listen, this is a moment. We all have that person that can really, reorganize things for us when you just can't see the light. Then you have that person and they're like, knock it off. Here's what's happening. And here's what you're going to do. So find your person at that. I have several of those, which is so nice, but luckily, for tonight, we decided to cut the show short just a little bit So we're going to wrap it up, and we appreciate everyone being here. And you guys, thank you so much for some amazing information. Like, I learned so much every time we do these shows, and I just am grateful
you.
for that. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Also, what do we have coming up at Evolve Me? Again, we're all practitioners at Evolve Me. You are welcome to come find us and a ton of other practitioners that can answer questions. You can set up bookings. There's classes, there's workshops. Just go check it out. Evolve Me, EVOLVME, Evolve Me. So definitely come find us there. Do we have, Lori, why don't you talk about your...
I have the Core
little bit.
Spiritual group is on Thursday nights, and it's at 8:00 at Evolve Me, and it's free. It is a place to talk about our spirituality, to talk about religion, to be there to support each other, and we have amazing conversations with each other. So if you LGBTQ plus IA, I know I get them all mixed up, but it is just a place to come to feel supported, and it's open to all who fit into that, and it's a great support system.
I actually have thought about coming to that just to learn a little bit more.
Well, I can't let you.
Listen.
I can't, it's not for allies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so I appreciate you want to come, and we can make a place for that, because we feel
That's
like
really good to know, though. That's good to know.
It has to be closed for that, because it's got to be a safe space, and allies are great, but there needs to be a space where they can really, sometimes when we're allies, we listen to the pain and we want to fix it, right? And we want to help with that, and sometimes those of us who are going through that, we don't need, we just need to talk about it, and so we thank you for your support. And next thing you know, Melanie, we'll have to do something for the allies.
Yeah, no, I think that's so great, and so good for me to know, and everyone watching to know, just that you've created like a really safe space for people to share. God, I can't even imagine what they would go through. I think that's awesome. Do we have any other, Jerry, can you think of any other workshops, or Lori?
Just in July, we have our stuff in July.
Yeah, the summit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, July summit. I think that's the big what is it called? Oh, I can't think of it. The big opening. I know, I'm like, so Evolve Me is doing like what is it? The hard I can't think of the word, opening itself up to everyone, doing a ton of classes and workshops. I know June has also been about
Hard opening.
Hard opening, yes. Hard opening. That is what is happening at Evolve Me in July. There will be a lot of, that's another reason why to get on there, and it's free to sign up. There will be a lot of workshops, and there will be a lot of practitioners talking about what they do. You can learn a ton. You can find a practitioner that works for you, find a course, find a, whatever you need, honestly. It's just, I'm always so impressed when I hear about what other practitioners or new incoming practitioners do, because I'm like, this is so cool. It's like all my people. But, and also I know June was, and it is still about the fact that everyone is intuitive. We're talking about your gut feeling and your intuition. That's, you've probably seen, if you've seen like on TikTok, you'll see a lot of that, and just reminding people to trust your gut and know that you are also intuitive, and like trust that, because that's a big deal for even me still. And I use my intuition to help people and to communicate with spirit, and I still have to remind myself to just trust. So
the more you do it, the stronger it gets.
That's right. That's right. It gets better as you remind yourself that you're a whole person, you're a whole being, your spirit, and you can trust your instinct. You can trust your intuition. That gut feeling, it's there for a reason. We all have it. That is intuition. So this June, we're kind of pushing that, and you guys should all really just keep that in mind. And if there's nothing else, we just want to thank you for watching. We're here every Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. I don't know if anybody else is another time zone on here. I'm not even sure.
I think we're Western.
Western? Oh God. What time is it? What time is it for you? 5. Okay. Lots of things happening. So definitely come back. We thank you for watching, and we hope to see you next week.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.